Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Do you ever feel like you're doing the journey alone? Have you ever felt like that you just need someone to talk to, someone who could bring some perspective into your world? Or maybe you're not the type of person who learns from watching video courses or reading books, and you just want to talk with someone specifically about your challenges and how to break through them. I want to introduce you to the High Performance Men's Coaching Program. It's an intensive coaching experience designed to unlock a man's full potential in his life, business, and relationships. Over this past year, I've brought together and trained some of the best coaches in the world to help men step up, stop playing small, and become the strongest versions of themselves. Learn more about High Performance Men's Coaching at kfmcoach.com. Again, that's kfmcoach.com. You are not alone, and we are here to cut through the crap, hold you accountable, and challenge you so that you can make your dreams become a reality. Go to kfmcoach.com to learn more and apply. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Jon Acuff, author of 5 books, New York Times bestselling books as well. Do-Over, Rescue Monday, Reinvent Your Work, Never Get Stuck, Quitter, Closing the Gap Between Your Day Job and Your Dream Job, Start. And most recently, I want to talk about his latest book, Finish. Give Yourself the Gift of Done. Jon, welcome to the show here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, and Jon, let's dive in. I'd like you to pull out just like a popular quote or something that really strikes you from the book that you could share with us here today to kind of get this thing started.
Yeah, I think a good kind of summary quote is that starting is fun, but the future belongs to finishers.
All right, that's a great quote.
And it kind of captures the idea that we tend to overfocus on the start and ignore the finish, but the reality is the finish matters most.
Starting is so fun. So I'm in the middle of a project and I might start another project halfway in the middle of the project.
Of course. Yeah, we love the start.
Why do you think that is? Like, do you have like a cycle of a project, or like, is it like start, it's really exciting, and then comes like the challenges, and then comes like, do you have a cycle of how this works?
Yeah, totally. So if you ask the average person, let's take a 30-day time frame. And I'd say, okay, Andrew, you're going to work out for 30 days. How, break it up to beginning, middle, end. What do you think it'll be like? Most people say, okay, Jon, the beginning will be day 1 through 10. The middle is day 11 through 20. The end is day 21 through 30. When the reality is the beginning is day 1, the middle is day 2 through 29, and the end is day 30. So part of the reason we have such a hard time with it is that the work starts on day 2. We've done work with thousands of people working on goals. The most common day to quit is day 2. It's not day 10. It's not day 15. It's day 2. And that's part of the reason we love to start, but are terrible at finishing.
What is happening in our brains, in our minds on day 1, in the middle, so day 2 to 29, and then day 30?
Yeah, so day 1, we're excited. Our motivation is super high. Like, anything's possible. Like, think about it this way. We have launch parties. We have kickoff parties. I've never been to a middle party. Like, I've worked at amazing companies like Bose and Staples and Home Depot. I never had a manager say, hey, we're in the middle of this project. It's the worst. Let's get cake. So what's happening on day 1 is excitement. The middle is the grind, and it's hard, and you don't see the results as fast as you want, and you're confused, and the way doesn't look clear. And day 30 is that satisfaction of, okay, we actually built something. I actually launched a book. I actually launched a podcast. So day 30 is really satisfying.
Okay. And so I think the question that everyone has is, how do we manage and get through the middle? What are things that we can do to make sure that we can get to day 30?
Well, I mean, part of it is you are deliberate about perfectionism. The reason so many people quit their goals is that the second it's not perfect, they go, okay, I'm going to do something different. That's why there's a lot of people with half-started notebooks. They went to a class and were like, I'm going to take notes about my life. And then they missed one day, or they missed one day of their exercise goal, or they miss, they miss a podcast week, and we get perfectionism and we quit. So one of the biggest keys you can do to make it through the middle, as I say, is be deliberate about admitting it won't be perfect and being okay with that.
I want to talk about the perfectionists. Like, how important is it just to get the thing done rather than have it be perfect to the vision that you had on day one?
Well, it won't be perfect. And it won't even be the same. Nobody who writes a book ends up writing the exact book they thought they would. It's always different. Nobody who launches a podcast, like I asked you before we got on, how many years have you done this? You said 4 years. I guarantee it would be so dumb for you to hold yourself to the format you started with exactly 4 years ago. Like, hopefully you've innovated, you've gotten better, you've learned. Like, I guarantee you didn't send notes the first time you did the show to people. Like, you've learned. So the idea that it'll be perfect doesn't even make sense, because it doesn't allow, like, perfection doesn't allow you for improvement.
Building on that, the vision that you have when you first started wasn't even perfect to begin with.
No, and it doesn't exist. I think it's critical. And the thing, like, here's a crazy example of perfectionism. A perfectionist would rather get a 0 than a C-. And what I mean by that is I'll meet perfectionists and they'll go, I'm going to run 5 miles every day. But today I don't have time. I only have time for 3 today, so I'm not going to do any. And you want to go, 3 is way more than 0, but a perfectionist would rather get a 0. So, like, people that are perfectionists have the messiest cars and offices. And you go, well, that doesn't make sense. Aren't they type A? They are, but unless they can clean with a toothbrush every inch, they won't even start.
Right.
And so that's the problem.
Now, yourself writing a book called Finish, did you have personal resistance when you were writing a book called Finish?
I always do. I mean, I always say that if you want to have a new idea, try to finish an old one. Like, nothing attracts new ideas like trying to finish an old one. So, for instance, when I was working on Finish, all of a sudden I was like, I want to start a podcast, and I had all these podcast ideas. So what I tell people is, don't feel ashamed. Just put those ideas at the finish line of the other one. So I made working on a podcast a condition of me finishing my book. So once it was over, I could do all the podcast I wanted, but I just knew if I added it to the mix, I was never going to finish the thing I was tasked to finish.
Yeah. What do you do, though, when you have something that comes up that actually is a really good idea? Like, it really is something that you should take action on. Something did pop up.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to move away from your first goal, your primary goal, or does it change? How do you manage that?
I would say, how closely related is it to your initial goal? Because you're right. There are, I don't want to throw away any idea. I'd rather you save all the ideas, look at them when you have time. But here's an example. So Phil Knight, the creator of Nike, like, if you read his autobiography, Shoe Dog, the first 50%, he hasn't even started Nike yet. Like, he was selling shoes by Onitsuka, like, which became Asics from Japan. So he only pivoted when their relationship fell apart, and he had to make his own shoes. And so he didn't say to himself, no, my mission was to sell their shoes. But, dude, they're tightly related. If you say to me, John, I want to write a book, and then midstream you go, you know what? Actually, I want to open a coffee shop. I would go, well, those things are wildly unrelated, so you're going to have to convince me how this helps. Like, I have friends who are musicians. A friend of mine, great talented musician, he has a snack newsletter at the job he works at. Like, it's really detailed. He tweets you about snacks. Like, it's organized. But it's because he doesn't want to work on his album. So if he told me, but I'm building a network and I'm learning about people and communications and marketing, I'd go, dude, snacks are nothing like music. So I would argue, if you have to do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon separation to explain why the new thing's related to the old thing, you're lying to yourself.
I'm sure that when Apple started, they want to be the big computer company. They probably did not envision that they would get into the phone industry, but
of course
it does serve. A lot of people who bought iPhones did not own Macintosh computers.
100%. Those are related. And so, yeah, I'm with you. Like, you might stumble. This action of working on one goal might surface something else you're supposed to do, but you have to be honest about if it's related or not.
Now, because you write a lot of books. Like, when I did the intro, I'm like, all right, this book. You write a lot of books.
Yep.
Why did you choose this book? And what other topics were on the table for you to write?
Yeah, so here I'll tell any of your listeners, because what's crazy, dude, is 81% of Americans, according to the New York Times, want to write a book, and less than 1% do. So every year you and I miss 250 million books that somebody wanted to write, but they didn't write. I see a ton of books in your background. There's 1 million times that never got completed. So I tell people, if you're going to write a book, here's the 3, or start a business or a podcast, here's the 3 things you look for. Do I have a curiosity? So is there a problem I'm willing to spend 2 years trying to solve? Is there a question I'll spend 2 years trying to solve? Second, is there a need? Are people in the marketplace asking for help with this thing? Third, is it missing in the marketplace? So for me, I wasn't good at finishing things. It took me 3 years to do 6 days of P90X. Like, I needed that in my own life. I had the curiosity. Second step, I wrote this book called Start, and all these people came up to me and were like, hey, I like your book about starting. It's great, whatever. But no offense, I've never had a problem starting. How do I actually finish? Will you write a book about that? So all this real need surfaced. Yeah. Third, I go to Amazon, I type in finish. Only thing that comes up is laundry detergent. So we have 1,000 books about starting and very few about finishing. So this book was born out of the real need for people that came up and said, we all know how to start. I can register 100 URLs at GoDaddy. I can do the artwork and register my page for my podcast. I never actually finished. How do I do it? And I got really curious.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 3 things. Is there a problem? Yes. I think a lot of people can identify if they're working on something. Yes. Is there a need? Yes. A lot of people asking, is it missing in the marketplace? I think that is where I think a lot of people might find, you might not have found a book titled Finished, but there are books out there similar to completion or getting it done. I think that is one of the books, getting things done.
Getting things done. Yeah. So here's the extra element to that.
Yeah.
So your curiosity has to make it unique. Getting Things Done is a great book, but it's not funny. It's not personal, where he's sharing the ways he's failed in his own life. So I recognized a long time ago, from a branding perspective, I'll never outthink Jim Collins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or David Allen or Jim Collins, but they'll never be funnier than me. So if I can create a book that's research-based with real data, but is also like when you listen to the audiobook, it's like a comedy album. Like I have so many people email me and go, you can't read this book in bed because you'll wake up your spouse laughing. Like that's my niche. So part of missing in the marketplace, you can still open a unique coffee shop right now, even though there's a million of those.
Right.
It's just, it has to be with your voice.
Okay. So then that's the missing link. So if it already exists, that's fine. You've got to be unique. You've got to add your own flavor to it.
Yeah. How's it going to, we don't need any more podcasts. We need a unique one.
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of time to still start a unique one.
Absolutely. On the coffee shop, a new one just opened up. It's so popular, but what makes it different is that it's like a social lounge, and it just attracts a lot of attractive girls. Sure. And that's really why it's cracking. Sure. Okay. And so for yourself, I'm curious why so many books just for your own business? Like, do you have a deal with a publisher that says, hey, Jon, you need to do 5 books by 2020? Or
No, I mean, I did one. My first book came out in 2010, and I just started to kind of build on that opportunity. And then I think there are some people that say I'm going to write a book every year, but it doesn't give me enough time to research it. Like, what I learned on this book, we had a PhD from the University of Memphis approach me and say, hey, I want to study what you do and see which parts work. And that was amazing. And so I'll never do another nonfiction book without a PhD on board, because what it's done is it's given me confidence in the ideas. Most entrepreneur ideas are, I had an experience in my own life, maybe it'll work for you too, where I get to say, like, hey, here's what research has shown. If you do this thing, you're 63% more successful. And if somebody doesn't like the idea, I just go, well, show me your 6-month research project. And then they're like, you're stupid. And they block me on Twitter. So I just writing a bunch of books, I don't think I'll ever it feels like a bunch now, but I'll never be a guy that's like every 6 months, every year, because I need longer time. Like, I need more ideas. I need it to mature. I want it to be good. Like, I wrote 150,000 to 200,000 words for this 50,000 word book. So, it's a long process.
Are you a writer? Would you consider yourself a writer even though you have all these books?
I consider myself a performer. Like, my other half of my job is public speaking. So the fun thing for me is I get to go to Microsoft or Comedy Central or whoever and talk about these ideas. And I really enjoy that. I would write somewhat, but I wasn't a writer in the sense of I've met people that they'll write even if they never have an audience. Like I like connecting with the audience. Like that's fun for me. Like when I have a project, I'll write. I'm not a guy who's like, and here are my 1,000 journals that I doubt anybody will ever see. Like I want to write a book and then share and then like shoot it out into the world, which is a performance. So I would say, and it's taken me a while to admit that, I would say I'm more of a performer than a classical writer.
How does that change the mindset? Saying I'm a performer, I'm actually not a writer, but the platform I'm using is writing.
Yeah, I mean, it changes it in the sense of you don't feel guilty about speaking. Like once you admit something, you're able to do it with a lot less frustration. So I love public speaking, and it also gives you a chance to focus on it and hone it. If you won't admit something, you don't get to be good at it. So when I say I'm a performer, I get to study comedians and understand timing. I get to go on the road. I get to do a tour. Like it changes what you say yes to. Once you know what that thing is, and not perfectly, but you have a sense of it, you then go, okay, this is what I do. Here's how I do it. That's where it changes, I think.
Yeah, I like that shift there. I think it allows you to be more free when you call yourself a performer rather than I'm a writer. Like it has to be this certain way. I'm wondering, how do you prepare for a journey such as a book that you just wrote, or you're going to go on tour, or you're going to create a product, whatever it is. Like in my mind, I feel like it's a very mental, like an emotional experience. Like if I say I'm going to write this book, like the day that you stamp your hand and say I'm writing this book, I'm going to get this done, or I'm going to create this product, or I'm going to launch this business. What are the things going through your mind that prepare you for that journey? Because it's a journey. You're about to set sail on this journey, and it's going to be full of course, challenges and long nights.
Yeah, so I guess I look at okay, what's the year look like? Where does this fit into my life? Who will I need help with? So after this podcast, I'm going to have a phone call with a super talented marketing guy to talk about Facebook ads and this course we're launching. So we're launching a finish course about how do you finish. And we've done 5,000 people have taken courses from us before. We have a 98% satisfaction rate. It's been a lot of fun, but I know in order to reach people that don't know who I am, which is most of the planet, I need to be deliberate about, figuring out my Facebook ad strategy. So I think a big part of the journey is saying, okay, as I go on this, the idea of it's me against the world, that's garbage. You're going to need other people. You're going to need, whether it's friends that are holding you accountable or whether it's other people, it's for you to be the best podcaster, you have to be connected to other people podcasting.
Right.
That sharpens you. Mm-hmm. It's dumb if you hide in your room and never talk. I'm not saying you have to go to every conference, but you should be grabbing coffee and saying, okay, what's growing your audience the fastest? What's a way to connect with an interviewer quickly? Stuff like that. So I think a big part of going on a journey is who's going on it with me and how am I interacting with them?
Mm-hmm. Great. What else could you add to that would help you throughout the journey?
Yeah. So another thing is what's worked in the past. Your next journey is usually not your first one. Mm-hmm. So people are terrible, dude. I'll meet people that lost 100 pounds, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And then their finances are out of order. And they'll go, well, I'm just not disciplined. I'll go, why can't you apply the things that worked over here to this other thing? So I think a big part of just starting a journey is going, what's worked for me in the past? And going, okay, I like short deadlines. If it's a long deadline, I'm screwed. I like visibility. I'm working on. I like this, and this.
You said you're launching a course. I'm wondering, and I'm sure the audience is wondering, how do you differentiate between the content inside of a book and the content inside of a course on the same topic?
It's a great question. You can go a lot deeper in a course than you can a book, especially a book called Finish. I didn't want a 400-page book called Finish. I didn't want it to be difficult to finish. So with a course, you can, right? With a course, you can go a lot deeper and say, okay, I have 30 specific ideas. So for instance, one of the things we learned was that your goal has to be fun. You have to make it fun. If you make what you do fun, you're 46% more successful. So then people go, okay, but not everything's fun. That's a great pushback. So then you say, okay, the two kind of main forms of fun that scientists measure are reward and fear. Reward is if I do these activities, I get this reward.
Right.
Fear is if I do these activities, I avoid this bad situation. A deadline is a fear kind of system in a good way. Yeah. Don't hear fear as a negative word.
Urgency,
exactly. Visibility. So I can say in the book 2 or 3 pages on that. In a course, I can teach a video on it and teach specific ideas about here are 10 ways to add a reward to the thing you care about. So it's really, I look at a course as an amplification. And then the reality is you've always, for every one idea in the book, there's 10 you didn't put in. And like 5 of those aren't good. 5 of them are awesome. You just couldn't do a 500-page book. So that's how I think about it. I mean, it's the same question of like, if you have a blog on the topic, how do you know what to put in? If you have a podcast on the topic, how do you know what to put in? I look at a course as it's also, keep in mind, it's not just content, it's community. Like a good course has a community element where I'm in a private Facebook group, like I'm getting text messages from Jon Acuff that encourage me like, oh, I got to do my check-in. Like, and then the other thing is you get to add to the course things you've learned from the launch of the book. So the reality is when I've got 3 months of people responding to it and going, dude, okay, what about this? Like, hey, here's this question I have. And you get really specific and really kind of nerdy about what you can provide.
I like that. And so the course is an amplification of what is inside of the book. Do you feel that if you were to try and say like, oh, I just want to save time, I'm not really good on video, I don't want to do all that, just put it all in the book, that it would turn into a textbook? Like it would just have all these, just too much going on.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fun. And the other thing is, like, there's a reason you're doing a podcast. You recognize people like listening and learning this way. So, like, same with video. Like, we live in a video culture. So if somebody says to me, hey, I love your book, I listened to it on audio, but I'd love to see a video explaining this, that's just me serving a new way to digest content. In the same way that, like, if you said to me, would you rather watch Stranger Things or read the script? I'd probably say, like, no offense to the screenwriter, I'd rather watch the show. Because it's going to have texture and feeling and music and all that. And so that's to me what a course does. If a course is done right, in my couple of years of doing courses, I've never had somebody go, I've already read this, I've already seen this. I think if anything, they go, wow, it really unpacked this thing. The book started the conversation. The course really like expanded it.
I think that's great. I think what you just said was, would you rather read the script or watch it? Like, how many of us have watched every Star Wars movie? I'm sure many of us have. How many of us have read a Star Wars book? I haven't. Oh, yeah. I love Star Wars. Really good, really good. An interesting topic on all of this here is like on completing things. I feel like in every journey, there's a moment where it's like in the hero's journey, it's the big challenge. It's the big demon, the big villain that we have to conquer. Do you have anything like that in your book about how do we overcome that last big challenge where there's a moment where we might quit and we're at that point of exhaustion?
Yeah, the book is aimed right at that conversation. I would say most of the book is about that. I would say that there's the last chapter is called The Day Before Done, because that's when self-sabotage usually happens. Or there's a chapter about what secret rules you live by, because some people have, for instance, fear of success. Fear of success is usually that a parent or somebody told somebody successful people are cocky and they're arrogant and they're showboats and success isn't good. So you might not ever say that, but inside somewhere you think success is bad, it's wrong. So as you start to get more successful, you start to self-sabotage. So your big demon might be just admitting like success isn't bad. I can still be humble and really successful. I can still make a ton of money and still be generous. Like making tons of money doesn't make me greedy. I can be greedy with $1 or $1 million. Like the greed is there regardless. So how do I kind of identify that rule and overcome it?
Okay. And then what are the questions that you would ask yourself to identify that and to kind of walk yourself through that process?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a couple ways. One, I always say like have a friend you can talk to, because sometimes we're so close to the painting we can't see what it really is. And then a friend will say, hey, Andrew, like the last 3 job situations you've had have ended the same way. I see a pattern. Do you? And you might go, I don't see a pattern. What are you talking about? But a friend can say, no, here's what's happening and here's why it's happening, and can give you some encouragement about that. So a big part of it is friends. Another big part of it is just do a review of the last, do a quick review of the last 5 goals you did. If you said, most of the time it's not your first goal. So if you said to me, John, I want to lose weight, I would say, okay, well, tell me about the last 5 times. And if you said, I always failed at the holidays. Then we would come up with a plan for the holidays. If you said, there's these 5 things that trigger me, I'd say, okay, well then you're self-sabotaging by triggering yourself. Let's figure that out. A lot of goal setting and finishing it's about self-awareness.
Very good. Self-awareness. Now, what was some of the advanced stuff that didn't make the book? You said there's 10 topics, but 5 of them probably don't make it, but 5 were really good, but they didn't make it. What would some of those advanced ideas be that did not make it into the book, but are definitely worth sharing?
So like making it through the middle, there's a bunch of information about how do you specifically focus on the middle to kind of blow that up. Another thing I would say is creating a base. A lot of people don't understand that they don't feel like they're making progress because they never did a base. When you start, you should find 10 points of data about where you currently are, so that in the middle of the project, when you feel like you haven't changed at all, you can say, wait a second, yeah, I have. So if you're only writing 10 words a day or 100 words a day, I need to know that at the base, at the beginning, so that a week in, I can look back on that and go, hey, no, you're up 40%. Like, hey, here's where it's trending. So I think having a base is one of those important things that you need as you kind of expand your understanding of goals.
How would you apply that to, let's say, weight loss, for example? So you did a writing example. So how would a base apply to
weight loss? Is the easiest one.
Yeah,
weight loss is easy. It's okay. So it's obvious. The easiest metric is pounds. You got to do it same time every day. You can't measure yourself in the morning, night, after, same time, consistently on the same scale. So pounds is an easy one. Clothing sizes is an easy one. Inches is an easy measurement. And then you go to higher level stuff. It's a little more complicated, but you do fat and body composition. And, there's so many different ways for you to measure yourself. And those are just the body ones. Now let's go, calories. Lose It is a super simple, super free calorie tracker. You go to Lose It. You then go, numbers of times I ran. Numbers of times I went to the gym. How long did I go to the gym? What weight did I lift? What calories did I lose? Weight loss has 20 things you can easily measure. Because what happens that I see is people go trying to lose 10 pounds and it was easier last time. But you don't know. It might have been twice as hard last time, but you don't know because you don't have any data. So we put a chapter on data in there, but I think that's one of those things that in our excitement to start something, we sprint ahead and we never stop long enough to go, wait. Where am I right now? What does my progress really look like?
Yeah, I think that's huge, just to know that you've made progress. Because I think if you don't feel like you're making progress, it's hard to keep going because you're just like, what is the point? I'm suffering
it's discouraging.
And no
what's
progress.
The point?
Why am I going through all of this? Okay.
No, it's useless.
Was there any other ideas that didn't make it into the book that were worth mentioning? Because I really like that base idea.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. I've got a pretty good list because I've gone through and said, what are the 30 things I need to do? So here's an example of how you can do something different in a course than how you would do something in a book. So in a course, I'm controlling the content release. I don't control that in a book. You might grab my book at an airport and read it before you land in Boise. You control the pace. In a course, dude, I control the pace. So one of the most amazing things I get to do is say, day 1, here's the content. Now, 3 days later, I'm going to send you another video because it's 30 videos over a 90-day period. So I know on day 4, I know how you're going to be feeling. I know what's happened in the last 3 days because I've worked with so many people. So I know day 4 is usually a day to quit. And you're discouraged. And you're like, why did I do this? I haven't progressed. And so I'm able to then serve up content specifically to that day and say, here's what you do. Another one thing that I can expand that wasn't in the book is about the value of being super weird in your goal. So I use the example of Sia, the artist, wears that crazy wig in part because she doesn't want the fame. She was a drug addict, had a really hard time with her initial fame with the band 07. So that's her saying, I want to be able to go to the grocery store, so I'm wearing this wig. Is that weird? It's super weird. But if you're going to work on your goals, you got to find little weird things that inspire you and make you go, I know this is weird. Here's one of my weird ones. So I'm reading 156 books this year. I finished 116 so far. I'm going to finish 40 the rest of the year.
Full page? You're reading every page there? Or
Full page. Yeah. Oh, so here's the thing. I actually, if your listeners want, I teach the whole thing for free at acuff.me/read. So I did a PDF and then I did a video on how I do it. And I used principles I learned in Finnish. Now, what's fascinating about that is that when I'll share how I'm doing it, some people go, well, that doesn't count. And I go, well, who makes up the rules for what counts? That's one of those secret rules. So I like audiobooks. Guess what? If I'm spending 5 hours listening to an audiobook, I'm adding that to my list. And people go, well, that doesn't count. According to who? It's your goal, dude. I'm not going to tell Andrew, you do you. Like, crush it according to you.
Right.
And so, like, for me, one of my reading tricks, and it's so dumb, but I swear I do it. When I'm reading on a Kindle and it shows you the percentage of completion, I'll pretend that's a football score. So I'll think of the football team I hate the most or the basketball team I hate the most. And I'll go, man, they're beating me 80-20. I've only read 20% of this book. And I'll go, I'm going to get 5% more because then it's 75-25. Like, I've scored a little more. Is using page numbers as a way to keep score silly and weird? Of course it is. Do I care what other people think? I don't, because I'm 116 in. Like, it works for me. Right, so I think being weird is one of those things you have to be deliberate about.
You're having fun with it too. It sounds like you're having fun with
I enjoy
progress. So
I enjoy it. So I mean, if it's working,
it's working. But on that topic of reading all these books, are you actually able to? I mean, that's a lot of books. Like, are you able to actually get all this information and apply the knowledge that is being consumed? That's quite a bit.
I think the reality is you apply from a great book, you apply 1 to 3 ideas. Mm-hmm. If I said to you, okay, Andrew, tell me something you learned from a book 5 years ago. Tell me 10 things. You'd go, you couldn't. Yeah. Like, the myth is you're going to apply all of it. No, you're not. Like, I would say, so Marie Kondo wrote the book, The Magic of Tidying Up or something. It was a book about tidying up.
Yeah. Sold
like 5 million copies. The biggest takeaway for me was she says, when you pick something up to see if you want to keep it, does it give me joy?
Right.
Like that, like, dude, I would pay for the price of the book for that concept.
Right.
Like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
So a good book gives you, like, I've heard like Tom Peters, this business guy, said, like, you got an idea that'll change your life and it only costs $15. Like, what a deal. Yeah. And so for me, I'm able to get 1 or 2 things out of these, and the fiction ones I'm just doing for enjoyment. Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to, and I keep notes on them. Like, if something strikes me, I go, oh, that's interesting. Like, so like the genius of birds, people think birds are dumb. We use phrases like bird brain or like we insult birds. Like, there are birds that can hide 30,000 seeds and know where each one is. Like, they remember the specific geographical location of 30,000 items. Like, that's brilliant, like, and fascinating. I'll add that to my head. Like, I would argue most podcasters, most authors, most entrepreneurs, they don't have writer's block. They have idea bankruptcy. They don't deliberately fill their head with enough ideas, and then they sit down with a blank piece of paper, and that's terrifying. I never sit down with a blank piece of paper.
Even in this podcast, people probably take away 1 or 2 ideas in a 45-minute conversation.
Oh, exactly. And here's the other, Andrew, like, the reality is, let's be honest, like, people hear and read what they need to read or what they need to hear. Like, you don't control how people experience your podcast. Like, you don't. Like, you've had this happen to you just like I have. I'll give a speech. Somebody will come up to me and go, hey, I love that thing you said. It was amazing. And then they'll say something I didn't say. Like, it might be close to it, but it wasn't something I said. And they'll go, but they're listening, like your listener who's 37 right now and is at a job they don't like, they're hearing this conversation through their filter of 37 years. And they're adding and they're remixing. Like, everybody listening to a podcast is remixing that podcast as they listen.
Mm-hmm. Like, they're thinking about their own life and how this might apply to them or certain scenarios that may have happened in their life. And then once all that gets filtered out, they have their own version of what was said. It could be close.
Exactly.
It could be close. Okay. Powerful ideas. And as you were talking, certain books just have one thing. And then I was like, there's that book, The One Thing.
Yeah, Keller.
And the whole idea is you don't even have to really read that book. I mean, just the biggest idea is like focus on one thing. Let's dive into the knowledge round. I'm just going to ask you a few rapid fire questions here, Jon, and then we'll wrap up.
So you might be wondering, why would I ever invest in a coach? I've never done anything like that before. Well, it's going to shorten your learning curve and save you the time that it would take to achieve your goal. You can avoid making mistakes that you would otherwise make. You'll get more results because everything will be tailored to your specific needs and challenges. The coach will hold you accountable so you can't procrastinate, so you can't be lazy, so you can't say, I didn't have the time. You'll be challenged and pushed harder than you've ever been pushed. You'll have conversations so powerful that you'll feel more energized, alive, and confident and certain about the goals that you have in front of you and where you want to go. Most importantly, where you want to be. You'll go farther than you've ever gone before when you have a coach. If you want to learn more about our high performance men's coaching program, go to kfmcoach.com. Again, that's kfmcoach.com to learn more about our high performance men's coaching program. You have got to understand that every successful person in the world invests in coaching to go from good to great. And if you're already a high achiever, then how much more could you achieve if you had a high performance men's coach at your side to push you even further? Go to kfmcoach.com to learn more and apply for our high performance men's coaching program. Again, that's kfmcoach.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
First question for you here is, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost and unsure of what is the thing they should actually start?
Yeah, so I would say don't try to pick a perfect thing. Like, part of the problem is people go, I don't have a goal to work on, so I'll just wait. And they wait for inspiration. Like, I just find something you like doing and then be deliberate about that. You know, we talked about relationships a lot. Ask a friend, ask a spouse. Like, if you can think of, like, God help you if you can't think of a single thing you want to change in your life. Like, that's a sad place to be. Where, like, I'm saying, okay, I want to lose 5 pounds. I want to read one more book. I want to start a podcast. I want to write a letter to somebody. I want to join Twitter. I want to grow my email list. Like, there are 1,000 different things you can do. Figure out the one that you feel most excited about and then do that, and never prioritize them. Because what a way to just get stuck. People think, I have to have this perfect list of goals I'm going to work on. No, you don't.
Yeah. What do you think is holding most people back from actually finishing? Like, what do you think is that one thing that is preventing people from finishing that thing they want to complete?
I think it's perfectionism, and then I think it's distraction. Like, the sexier our devices get, the harder it is to finish. Like, if the average American watches 35 hours of TV a week, those hours are coming from something else. And so, like, Netflix doesn't even make you press a button to watch another episode. Like, they start it automatically.
They just say, nope, you're in.
So, yeah. So I think it's perfectionism and distraction.
Okay. So you've been reading or listening, consuming a ton of books. What have been 3 of your most influential books that you've read this year that have helped you with this book finishing?
Yeah, I would say Discipline Equals Freedom. It's by Jocko Willink. He wrote Extreme Ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah. His book was like a Red Bull punch in the face. Like, it was just like, it was very encouraging, very motivational. It wasn't like tactical or practical, but that's not what I wanted to be anyway. And then the other one would be The Shape of Ideas, which is about creativity and ambition and like why we do the things we do and what we're interested about. And then I read Seth Godin's The Dip like once a year. And that one for me is so informative about like what are the things you should quit and which one should you stick out.
So a lot of people might be starting something right now and they're wondering if they should quit. What advice would you have for those people who are in that decision-making process of thinking they should quit, or should they continue and get to day 30? And I think day 30 is kind of like just an idea, because it really doesn't take 30 days to.
Yeah, exactly. It's a marker. I mean, reality is most goals are longer than that. They're just chunked up in 30-day segments because that's how we break up time. I would say a few things. How long have you been working on it? You know, when somebody tells me they quit their job after 3 months, I think you didn't even experience a whole year. Like, you don't, like, what did you think you learned? I'd say, how long have you been doing it? I would say, is it taking away from other parts of your life? You know, like if it's ruining your marriage and your current day job, like that, those are 2 big signs. I would say, is it costing you a lot of money? I would say, you know, if it goes well, will it still not work? Sometimes like you've got the model so broken that even if it's successful, you're still going to fail. Like even if you go like, if you know, say you start a restaurant and you don't have enough seating, there's no win. Like you'll never, like unless the food's really expensive for the 4 people that can fit in your restaurant, or the parking is always an issue. So and it's a hard message to hear. Somebody asked me the other day, they're trying to connect with a celebrity and they had made a website and they had done a million good things. Like they had really worked hard on it. And I saluted that. But I also said, I think it's time to let this one go. Like sometimes if your goal is so crazy, I could work out for the rest of my life and never make the NFL. Does that mean I'm a failure? No, it means like I'm not genetically even related to making that goal. So I think part of it is not realistic, because I think that's a fairly dangerous word.
Right.
But I think, like, is it even in reach? You know, it'd be like, where do you live, Andrew?
San Diego.
Yeah. So if you told me I want to be a country music songwriter, but I don't want to leave San Diego, I'd say, well, then you're not going to be a good country music songwriter, because you have to live in Nashville. It'd be like, that's as dumb as saying I want to surf, but I'm not going to move from Wichita. You go, well, that you're not going to be good at surfing, dude. Because Wichita does not have waves. And so I think you look at some of those factors, and just, we hate admitting limitations. Like, we just do. We don't like to admit, okay, that's a limit, and I can't control my book selling millions of copies. I can't, dude. I would have done it already. Like, believe me, I would have done it already. I don't control Kathy Lee Gifford seeing my book at her doctor's office and bringing it on the Today Show. Like, I don't control that. So, like, if that was one of the things I was thinking about quitting, I would quit that as a goal, because it's a terrible goal.
Got it. Which book of yours has surprised you the most in performance? Like, you wrote it, you didn't, I mean, obviously you did your best, but even to this day, it's continuing to outsell some of the others.
Well, Finish is my fastest selling book. So, like, I got like 100% Finish. Finish has sold in weeks what other books took a year to sell.
Wow.
Because every company I talk to goes, every employee could be better at finishing their goals, right, and it's actually readable and fun and interesting. Like, like, I'm in. So yeah, Finish to me has been the biggest surprise, just because it's come out of the gate so strong.
What have you learned from that? So you look back and it's like, wow, one book is outperforming so many of these other books, and I did it, recently. Now, what does that tell you about future books that you may write? Like, when you're picking a topic?
Yeah, so I know, like, one of the things it taught me about was the title. Books with positive titles sell better. Like, that's just the bottom line when it comes to self-help nonfiction.
Uh-huh.
Like, John Maxwell's least selling book, I think, was Failing Forward, because people said, I don't want to fail. I'm not, like, we are such a denial-based.
Yeah, we want to avoid.
Yeah, and we won't admit it. Like, we're so denial-based, like. So I learned, because the original subtitle of Finish was Stop Making Perfect the Enemy of Done. But that was negative. So the new title, the subtitle is Give Yourself the Gift of Done. So I've learned that if you want a stranger who's never heard of you to stop and pick your book up in an airport, it better be positive and have a promise of what you're going to get if you read this. So, like, I think the title is
4-hour work week.
Exactly. One of the most important things you can do is title your book the right way.
That's great. Now, we're wrapping up here. I'm curious, how do you instill these great ideas? So whether it's Finish, Start, or these other books, and of course you have so much other great content that you've created, into your children? Or do you even try? Do you hope that you just embody this and they catch on? Or do you sit down and break down your principles to them? How does that work? Because I'm sure a lot of people, they might not be authors, but they might be reading a lot of books, and they would like their kids or their partner, significant other, have this kind of rub off on them too.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's back to that positive title. One thing, whether it's a partner or a spouse, because you'd be amazed how many women buy the book for their husband, because they see something in their husband that he doesn't see in himself. And you couldn't give somebody Quitter. Quitter sounded like, hey, it's a book about having a terrible job, just like you, loser. Like, that started a marriage fight. It wasn't helpful. You give somebody Finish, like, you give a husband or a wife Finish, they're like, oh my gosh, that idea I've always had, you believe that I could do it? I'm going to read this book. So part of it is making sure it's given in a kind way. As far as my kids, like, we just look for small moments to practice. The problem with parents is that they want to raise they take their 15-year-old and they're like, I wish my 15-year-old had a better attitude, but it's the wrong time. The right time is when they're 5, and you give them 10 years to practice having a good attitude. So, like, my daughter right now, my oldest daughter, has a YouTube channel that she's growing, and she's learning about how do you grow an audience, how do you serve an audience, and we're having these conversations. And, like, the other day, she promoted it, and she said, Dad, 100 people saw it on Instagram, and only 1 followed me. And I was like, welcome to social media. Like, it's a terrible scale sometimes. And then like yesterday, our kids had a sports commitment. Like they swim. They're in a swim league, and they had a meet that they had committed to their coach. I'll be there. And they're in relays, all this. And so then all of a sudden there's this really fun party they got invited to, and they wanted to go to the party instead. And so for my wife and I, it was a chance to say like, hey, life's going to be like that sometimes. Like you're going to miss the party to go do the thing you committed to, but you're going to keep your word. And like that matters more than how you swim today. What matters is that you told your coach something and you kept your word and you were truthful. Yeah. And so we look for small ways to practice that.
Wow. Great ideas. I think a lot of people want to learn more about how to take what they're learning and pass it on to those they love. Jon, this has been a fantastic episode. And for the audience, you can follow up with Jon's work at Acuff, ACUFF.me. I would also just Google Jon Acuff because he has a ton of great content all over the internet. And then, of course, go to Amazon and Finish is the book we've been talking about. Give yourself the gift of done. But he also has many other great books. So I would type Jon Acuff into Amazon and you can see all the great books that he has there. Jon, anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, yeah. Twitter. I'm on Twitter like a maniac. I'm just at Jon Acuff, JONACUFF. And yeah, it's always fun to connect. And I think it's it's an easy way to kind of get a little more information and go, okay, well, that made sense. And, here's how I can apply it to my own life. So that's my hope.
All right, there it is, guys. Jon, thank you so much for coming on the show and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.